incredibly exciting to be here. I have never been to Normal, and I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm Chicagoan, but I've taken lots of trips around the state. I do have a very statewide focus, but this is my first time in Normal, and I took the Amtrak down. First, I rode my bicycle to the Blue Line in Chicago. Then I took the Blue Line downtown. Then I hustled, I hustled to Union Station, got on Amtrak, had a lovely 2 hours, digging around with this presentation, got off the train, Mercy picked me up, she took me on a bike ride, everything was accessible, so I'm thinking, when my son, he's 6, I'm thinking maybe college here for him, it would be working out, so congratulations to the town of Normal for all your great work and your support of this. As Mercy said, I've been involved in various capacities for a long time in bicycle advocacy and planning, and I'm just thrilled to be here. So, one of our big themes today is going to be this idea that you don't need to be a special person to ride a bicycle. At the same time, those of us who are bicycle advocates, or missionaries, as I like to call myself sometimes, we need to recognize that people have very legitimate challenges that we need to take seriously. So I have, over the years, I do kind of crazy things. People always ask me, you rode your bike in that dress? Or
she got married by bike, just saying.
I almost put that picture in, but I was thinking, oh, there's already a lot of pictures of me and my family. So, you rode your bike in the snow? You brought home a washing machine and dryer on your bike trailer? By the way, I do not advise that. Our hitch has never fully recovered. You rode 50 miles, you were thinking, I said, oh yeah, it's easy. If I can do it, you can do it. Yeah, right, no, that is not true, and that is not helpful. That is what I've sort of learned over time, is that not everybody is me. I've been physically active ever since I was a kid. I don't own a car by choice, but that means I have the financial ability to buy a nice bicycle and maintain it. I have a community of people who support each other. I would not have started riding my bicycle in Chicago if it hadn't been for meeting other people who did it. Peer to peer, one of the most powerful yet inefficient ways to help other people discover bicycling. I used to be what I call walking and transit dependent. And for me, finding bicycling was like a revelation and completely changed my approach to transportation. And I've been singing its praises ever since. So I did some frantic post-lunch revisions. So Steve Buckle, are you in here? Are you here, or did you? Maybe he's eating. Oh, so, all right. Well, this is for Steve, if he was here. Steve and I grew up together, I feel like, in the bicycle advocacy community. We've known each other for probably 15 years, maybe longer. And one of the things that I'm not going to really talk about in this presentation is some of the real benefits and joys of cycling. And something that doesn't get talked about enough, I think, is how fun it is. Well, we do talk about that. But the fortitude you get if you ride your bicycle for all different reasons and purposes. And speaking of trails, me and my friends, before we had kids and now that we have kids, we take crazy trips all over Illinois, all over the Midwest, sometimes with Amtrak, sometimes I just went a long time. You would not believe the adventures we've had. I did one on an Illinois trail. I did one riding my bike into the Ingham Canal Trail. It was a big day, nothing kind of mentally hampering. It was just like to miss a collision. And I think about all the adventures I've been able to have on my bike, with my family, with my friends, and we're toughening our kids up by making them do these crazy long bike rides with us. So a little shout out to Steve, I'll have to tell him about it later.
And just to throw out there, when you ride with kids, because I ride with kids a lot, part of it is that sense of adventure, giving kids a sense of going out and exploring the unknown. When I lead my bike club kids, I make a point of oftentimes taking them to a natural place and cutting them loose and saying, okay, 45 minutes back here. And for city kids, for urban city kids, that's mind-blowing. I mean, you have no idea how cool that is for them to go play in the mud, to discover a to find that little nest where the chipmunks have made a little nest up in the tree, the squirrels, sorry, or to find a little hole in the ground where a little mole dug up out of a tunnel. Those things are really powerful, and kids get that from being on a bike because they're in touch with nature in a way that they will never be if they're being ferried from sporting activity to after-school activity in a car. So it's not just fortitude, it's a sense of adventure, and it's a sense of accomplishment, and it's also this sense of, what happens if you break down and you're in the middle of nowhere? You got to figure out how to solve that. What happens if you're with Mrs. Healy and you wander so far you can't hear her whistle when it's time to come back? You got to figure out how to find your way back to that trail. And I know, if the parents knew that I did this, they'd probably be terrified and would never let me take their children. But trust me, the kids line up on Fridays and Saturdays to go off on these adventures with us. It's really powerful. It's something that really, I think you have to take that love and sense of nature really becomes embedded in kids who ride their bikes a lot.
Speaking of the parents, this is something, it's in the news all the time, the hovering, are we overprotecting our children? Just raise your hand if when you were a kid, you were allowed to play outside in the front of your house, in the street. Anybody? Wow. Wow. That's actually pretty common.
Did you say were or were not?
Were.
Were allowed. You did frolic, cavort with your friends out in front of the house.
I probably left the house after school and didn't come back till dinner time, right?
Well, you did come back to eat.
Right, yeah, exactly. You gotta refuel. How many of you would let your own kid now play in front of their house? All right. Some of you live in probably more pleasant neighborhoods than I do. But still, way fewer hands. So, our executive summary today, this is my one sort of nod to the fact that often PowerPoint presentations have a lot of text. We're going to try to avoid that phenomenon. But I am going to read this because this is sort of our big idea, that engineering and education strategies can help a broad range of people, as in everybody, overcome real and perceived barriers. Some barriers are real, some are just kind of in our head, and we're just so nervous, which is okay. To using bicycles for a variety of trips. It does not have to be all or nothing. And then after the workshops this morning, the discussions this morning, I amended this, revised this slide to include, and this is so important to me, that includes those who don't know how to ride or who haven't been on a bike since they were a kid. These are the people who are going to make the difference. If we don't reach those people who don't know how to bike, who aren't comfortable, we are never going to get the mode shift, the meaningful mode shift, the tipping point that I assume all of us are hoping for. And so I'm just going to pull a Steve right now, repeat after me. I'm only going to do this to you guys once, I promise. You do not need to be a cyclist to be a person who bikes.
You do not need to be a cyclist to be a person who bikes.
The significance of that statement. So often, we define ourselves as cyclists, we're advocates, we're a user group, and you hear it all the time, oh, I'm not a cyclist. That's okay. What is this mythical cyclist person, People go around saying, I'm not a pedestrian. You're a person who walks. And so, I encourage you to sort of play around with this language. When you say, oh, I'm a person who bikes, I'm a person who sometimes uses my bicycle for transportation. Would you like to use, I can teach you how to use your bicycle to go to the store, and you're not saying, I'm going to turn you into a cyclist. No. A bicycle is a form of transportation. Simple as that. Alright. Again, disclosure, Jane and I are both former teachers, elementary,
High school.
Yeah, and so, and I was joking with Jane when you guys were talking, I said, I love the sound of people talking and communicating, so thank you for participating. Get my glasses back on. Oh, this is just a couple of the words that come to my mind, sort of a fake Venn diagram. In the middle are the words that are sort of bridges that I had when I was a kid and that I have now. Some of the obvious stuff, freedom, friends, fun, speed, adventure. But I also wanted to throw bad fit in there. Are there any women, or men, particularly short women, like me, who have a really hard time finding this bicycle that fits them? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, not many fellow co-sufferers jolly good effort to ride her bicycle, and she just could never find a bike that fit her. And she wasn't going to spend $1,000 to get a custom-made bike. So I'm hoping that as we do, again, get into more all ages, all abilities, we'll have a broader range of bicycle options for people. I just want to call out a couple things. When I was a kid, did any of you have that moment when you rode your bicycle and then all of a sudden it was not cool? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, so when I was, like elementary school, yeah. High school, no. I would walk a mile and a half in heels before I would get on that bicycle. Another thing I want to point out that I think sometimes we don't talk about in terms of the benefits to adults, I really want to call out social justice. Some people choose to ride bicycles, some people have to ride bicycles. And so if for no other reason than providing access to all, we need to provide bicycle friendliness for people. It can also be an incredible form of independence if you don't have a car and you're tired of, I love transit, but if you're tired of waiting for that bus for 20 minutes during off-peak hours, there you go. If you're somebody who's lost their driver's license. And I apologize if I'm kind of pulling it back to Chicago experiences, but I know this happens in suburban and rural areas where somebody has to ride their bike 3 or 4 miles to the employment center that's off the sort of scary arterial. That's where the crashes are happening. So just something to kind of keep in the back or even the forefront of our minds is that the bicycling is not just about environment, physical activity, it's also about social justice. So, I don't know, have any of you heard the model of the Roger Geller's 4 types of cyclists? Okay, if you have, don't cheat and let other people know about what I'm going to tell you, because we're going to do a little, kind of try to puzzle things through. Roger Geller, the sort of bicycle program manager for the Portland Department of Transportation, a couple years ago came up with this model of thinking about the different kinds of cyclists because, we need to figure out how to reach a bigger market. So who are we and who are the people who aren't riding? And so he came up with a couple of categories. One is a strong and fearless category, which I didn't realize until recently that I fall into, because I thought what I did was completely normal and that everybody did, but apparently that's more of the strong and fearless bicycle type. Like Annie Londonberry, anybody familiar with her? She did a bicycle ride around the world. Some dispute whether she did the entire world, but it's really close enough. 1895, by herself, huckstering all the way. I consider her one of our early brave and fearless, strong and fearless cyclists. The gentleman up on top there, he's taking the lane. A lot of people are not there like, I'm going to get hit from behind, even though we know they're not going to hit you for the most part. Nobody wants to hit you. If you're in front of a driver, they see you. But that's not intuitive to a lot of people. And of course, I love this kid. I don't even know who it is. You can't tell. But clearly, his family is raising him to be there every day, no matter what. The next cat. And I want you to, how many of you think you're kind of the sort of the strong and fearless? You'll ride anywhere. Doesn't matter what kind of road it is. I'm going to say that is not representative of the population. Okay. So here's the enthused and confident. Yes, that's my son. He is very enthused, very confident, perhaps a little bit too much for his own good. But he's a very...
That's his first day of school shot with the tie, by the way, just pointing it out. He's getting ready. He's styling.
Yeah, he's styling. That's my son. He's Miguel. He's in kindergarten. And he's an incredibly competent cyclist. And if we had better facilities, I would say about 73% of the space, the strip that we need to occupy for him to get to school is totally fine. But there's like those 2 intersections that I'm sorry, I am not going to let him cross until he's 23. Okay? So, he has the skills and the enthusiasm, but he can't be that, even though he thinks he's strong and fearless, no. But this group, the enthused and confident, they've really been drawn out by the improvements in the last 2 decades. The bike lanes, the bike racks, the encouragement programs. Bike Biking Month. They have become more prevalent. How many of you would consider yourselves kind of more of an enthused and confident? And this, they're not mutually exclusive. So more on the enthused and confident. How many of you know people who you think could be bumped up to enthused and confident? Okay. Now we get to perhaps the most important group. The interested but concerned. You might also hear this referred to as all ages and abilities, the 8 to 80 years old. These are the folks who are not really comfortable biking right now because they don't want to deal with those two nasty intersections. Because they maybe don't have their tires pumped up. Okay, it's been in the basement for too long. They are biking, they're not confident in their bicycle. They might not even have the physical skills. But if things were a little easier, if they knew other people, they might be willing to try. Okay. Again, do you know anybody who falls into that category? They seem like they're kind of interested, and if things were a lot better, they would ride their bikes at least some of the time. I mean, I'm sure. Okay, in terms of a task, your job after this conference is to go give those people a call, check in on them, and see, if you can move them up into the enthused and confident arena, and report back.
Suggestions, take them to a safe place to ride, like a trail, because that's a really comfortable place to ride.
We taught Miguel how to ride a bike in a parking lot, riding with other people. Take them on a ride, be slow.
Involve food or treats.
Yes, treats.
As a kid, involve playground.
Keep it short. Positive experiences. And then there is the no way, no how, not interested. I'm not going to ask you to identify yourself if you are that person. That's okay. And that's okay. Not everything has to be for everybody. So, another little turn and talk action. This is what I would like you to do. You're going to spend a little bit more time with this. What do you think what are some of the challenges to biking? And because again, I'm a teacher, I like alliteration. See if you can come up with words that begin with C. Like for example, climate. I mean, I could say weather, but I'm cheesy, so I'm going to say climate because it begins with C. So what are some of the other challenges, barriers that people might face? Then, don't worry about where you fall into the category, we just talked about that. Or what kind of cyclist, rather. Try to come to consensus about what percentage of the population you think is a fearless, confident, concerned, knowing. This is coming from a more urban sort of pool, but I think a lot of the conditions are similar enough, just at a smaller scale, that is probably transferable. And these numbers have been research backed, but I just want to put that disclaimer out there. So go ahead, puzzle through, and we'll check back in a couple minutes. So I'm just curious, within a couple percentage points, raise your hand if you were kind of close in terms of your assessment of the strong and fearless. Who kind of guessed about 1%? Okay, great. What about, small. Enthused and confident, who came pretty close to the 7%? Did you think it was more? Okay. All right, April? 60% interested but concerned. Okay.
That's a big number. That's a big group of people.
Nobody know how. You guys, what did you think? Surprise? So here's the thing. Think about this from a sales perspective. Yes. 60% untapped market. Right? I mean, 60% is a lot of people. And the question is, how do we advertise to those folks? What do they need? I'm going to do the super speedy thing. These are my C's. Cars, drivers. I would say we need many more streets that have lower speed limits. You don't always need to redesign a street. Lower the speed. You're much less likely to get killed if you're hit by a car going 20 miles per hour than 30 miles per hour. 5% versus 45%. Conditions, as in what does the street look like? Is there room? The confidence, comfort. I always sort of call it like the major logistics: clothes, cargo, climate, children. Jane's going to talk talk a lot about that, show a lot of great pictures. And then something that career is an obvious one. Some people don't feel like biking is compatible with their career. There are all kinds of ways to work around that. But community cannot be overemphasized. Yes.
Underestimated.
Yeah, underestimated. Again, peer-to-peer. Do people who look like me, who act like me, who have lives like me, do they ride their bicycles for transportation?
Can we have the hands of the Bloomingdale Women's Biking Group? Could y'all raise your hand if you participated in that Bloomingdale?
The spokeswomen?
Spokeswomen?
And is Karen Davis here? Karen, may you stand up?
So would you say that it's more that the fact that you have community has helped your process of getting women on bikes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's fun.
Having different rides,
Yeah, having routine. It's regular. It's something that's fun. There's this sense of camaraderie, is my guess, right?
community and a culture.
Yeah, culture. Here's the word culture.
And Karen, are you going to be at the Medici later?
Probably.
Okay, so talk to her about how to start your own women's cycling group, and please give me the name of your bicycle shop. Bloomington Cycles.
Bloomington, sorry.
Keep in mind that actually mechanical, I didn't put that up there, but lack of, especially for women, inexplicably, lack of confidence about how to just fix it flat, things like that, can really be a deterrent. So that's another great kind of empowering thing about targeting women with that skill. And again, community, carrying on. Yes.
I have a bicycle. Our bicycle club has a ride that we down dress when we push people out.
Oh,
We
that's
ride
a good
it
one. He's saying that his bike club has a group that down dresses. Explain that.
Well,
Somebody said the naked bike ride?
for our Tuesday night bike ride, we have a group that it's a casual ride, and we want to introduce these.
I think it's on. I just think it needs to be closer to your mouth.
It's on. I don't know what I have to do. Can I yell louder?
Yes.
But
I'll repeat what he
on our
says.
Tuesday night bike ride for new people, we down dress. We wear cutoffs, we wear t-shirts, we wear the helmet, of course, but we'll show up with flat pedals and sneakers, and we ride 3 speeds and coasters so that we can bring those people in that are afraid to ride with those geeky bicycle guys.
It's so true.
They show up sparingly, but they start to show up, and they feel more comfortable with the stuff.
How far do you run?
Somewhere between 5 to 7, 10 miles. It depends on who shows up.
So what he's saying, what he's saying is that they host rides that are very much geared towards the more sort of novice, I don't have Lightma kind of crowd, the flat pedals, trying to keep it less intimidating to people. We can I like to call it the gateway drug approach, trying to get people hooked a little bit, reeling it in. It's funny because I kind of do the opposite. I always do like the up dress.
Well, I think his point was not that you're wearing heels and pearls, because we all know that that looks fabulous on a bike, but not wearing the spandex warrior outfit, which can be really intimidating for people who are built like me, or for people who are not into, like, I'm going to count out 100 miles this Saturday morning. And I think that's a really, really important thing. If we want to be welcoming, we have to make it seem like anybody could do this. And let's be honest, pretty much everybody can ride a bike, right? Comment.
There's so many people that won't put on a helmet, because they look dorky with the helmet on, and some people don't like helmet head hair. It bends my brain.
Well, you can always make the choice to not wear a helmet, and I will tell you there's many, many people that don't wear helmets, but I don't want to go into that debate because I know that's going to open a big can of worms. But I think that helmets should not be a barrier to cycling. Okay? So I think there's ways to overcome that, right? And there's ways to have that conversation. And I think it's a valid point, though. There's a lot of people, I happen to ride with a lot of African-American women, and I'll tell you straight up, they're worried about their hair. They don't want their hair getting trashed by wearing a helmet. And so you have to talk, and you have to educate, and you have to make people comfortable. So we actually have a couple of workshops we run with one of my girlfriend, Danielle, who's a model, and she actually goes out and shows all these cute things you can do with a scarf underneath your helmet. So there's ways to get around that, but those are barriers.
Yeah, the scarf, the scarf is a great tool. Not only can it kind of sort of contain the damage, but it's always really, really good to have on hand during those transitional seasons. And let me tell you, I could do 3 hours talking about bike winter, but I won't. But if you want to ask me about it at dinner, feel free. I always tell people, like, after about August until about, now, sets, the wind picks up, it starts to rain. And I really think that cold ears are one of the key things that, make you fall out of your saddle. I always say, don't let bike fall make you fall out of your saddle, because, you get really, really cold, it's painful, and then that's your cue, put your bike in the basement. So just little things like that can really make a difference for people. I just want to geek out for a minute, and then we'll kind of power on more to some of the practical tips. This is a theory of mode choice. This is research that was just recently published. And I feel like I love the way this captures a lot of the variables, and it's useful for us to keep in mind as we're trying to figure out the pressure points for people, for individuals, what is it that you need? What is going on in your decision making? So the very first thing, which I kind of forget about, is awareness and availability. Do you even know that there are bicycle facilities in your community? Do you have a bicycle? Just basic nuts and bolts stuff. And then there's this, what he calls situational trade-offs. Safety and security. Are you afraid you're going to get hit? Do you think something's going to happen to you in the middle of the night? Stuff like that, which goes to, higher level design. Convenience and cost. Like in a lot of areas and where I live, biking is much more convenient. But it's not always going to be that case, and that's why you'd say it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Pick a trip that will be convenient, or it won't be as inconvenient. And then enjoyment. Is there a pleasant route? I always say that just because you can bike on an arterial with a bike lane, the bike lane is there, especially even if it's a buffered bike lane, even if it's a protected bike lane. Great, safe, I can bike there, but I'm sorry, I would still rather bike on the shady, quiet, residential street. So, and again, that's not for everybody. When I want to go fast, I definitely take the main streets. But enjoyment, the sense of, am I going to like my trip? Over there on the side, you see the socioeconomic factors that's leading to your culture, community, and then this is so key, habit. It's really hard to break a habit, even though I'm talking this game of, pick your mode of transportation for whatever trip you're going to make. That's actually a little bogus because I know, my stuff is in this bag, okay? I got it out of the house. I'm going to do it the same way I do every morning. So it's just something to keep in mind, if you're a person of routine, be realistic, that I always like to say a bike in motion stays in motion. A bike commuter who's a bike commuter stays a bike commuter. That probably doesn't make any sense. Okay.
I will add to that too that for habit, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 2-mile challenge, but that's a great way to kind of nudge yourself to be very self-aware of how you're getting around. The 2-mile challenge basically says if you're doing a commute that's under 2 miles, you choose to do it by bike. And there's a free app out there called Bike Brain. If you have a smartphone, you can log your miles really easily. And it's just kind of a way, for me, I use that because it kind of keeps me religious on biking. It's real easy in suburbia to jump into your car. If you have a car, it's real easy to do that. And for me, having that 2-mile challenge, actually for me it's a 3-mile challenge. If it's under 3 miles, I'm like, nope, not taking the car, I'm taking the bike. And I think because of that, it does become a routine, it does become a habit, keeps you honest.
I have, in some ways, the most sort of admiration from a transportation perspective for folks who do have cars, and a lot of people do, obviously, and who still choose to sometimes travel by bicycle. And because I do think that it is hard to, it is convenient and pleasant, I was joking, I was in a car with my dad the other day, wow, the music sounds really good in here, So, there are reasons that people, choose to drive, but again, we're talking about broadening horizons, and obviously there are all kinds of fun things about biking, such as biking into the I.M. Canal, which Steve will brief you on later. So, what does that 60% want? Jane is going to get a lot into that, but I'm just going to basically say they want higher level bicycle facilities. They want separation from car traffic. They want to be in slow and calm car traffic. There's sort of a couple of major ways to do that. One is the trail. That's my son and Miguel biking to Metra.
And tying in with Versailles' conversation earlier with side paths, it's that same idea.
The bottom picture shows a protected bike lane. It's not, you see a kid, a parent, they're, they're not worried about getting hit by a car. As I'm sure Ed brought up, there's lots of intersection issues to deal with. As with any design, people figure it out, but cities across the world have been working with protected bike lanes, keeping people away from cars, and it's made a huge difference in terms of motion. And then sort of my favorite is the kind of bicycle boulevard model, where you take a residential street and you just make the intersections a little nicer. So instead of you having to yield to everybody, people yield to you, so it's a little bit more continuous. You're not always starting and stopping. Easier to navigate intersections, all those different things we talked about. And then I will say now to my shiro, Jane Healy. Thank you very much.
Okay, so while Jen's getting my little presentation get going, I'm going to make y'all stand up. Please stand up. I'm not joking. Stand up. Put your phone down. Stand up. I want you to stretch right now. Take a big stretch. Big stretch. Oh, open up that chest cavity. Take a big suck of air. And exhale. All right, good. I want you to stomp a little bit. Stomp, 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 stomp. I tell my students, try to wake up the classroom underneath you. Which is English. Yeah, because I'm science. All right, so now I want you to take your arms, wave them above your head, do both of them. Get them going. Okay, without hitting your neighbor, do a little chicken wings. There you go. Okay, take another deep breath. Fill up your lungs and exhale. All right, you sit. All right. All right. Ooh, I did a clicker. All right. So, barriers to biking. All right, barriers to biking. Right now, you're all thinking, oh, yeah, I can think of a bunch of barriers to biking. So, this is by far a complete list. I'm sure you're going to come up with stuff that I'm not thinking about, but this is what I was throwing up there. This is what I had pictures for, and this is what I've been thinking about. Okay, this is the city of Chicago. I know you guys, most of you probably are not riding in a majorly urban area. You can tell this is a construction zone. This is a bike lane. Okay, I think I can do my little thing. Oh yeah, there's the bike lane, right? See it? Can't quite see it because of the wet, it's wet, right? Look carefully. What's wrong with this picture? Okay, here's the bike lane of traffic. Kind of a problem. Obviously, there is a big gaping hole in the same direction as you're going to be riding. In the bike lane! This is a problem. This is a barrier. Someone's going to hit that on a wet day like I was riding. They're going to wipe out. They're going to tap out their wheel. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to be off their bike, and that's a barrier. Like, that's the sort of thing that needs to be addressed.
Or they're going to lose almost half of their teeth. As happened to a friend of mine who got chewed up by a grate like that. Over a year of reconstructive surgery, so not to be done.
Not good. Okay, so, all right. So obviously that's a dangerous gap in the grading. Solution, get it repaired. In Chicago, we can call a number. We call 311. We get it reported. I have not been cast here since then to see if it's gotten repaired, but I would hope that they would address it. At the very least, I've given them a heads up, and now it could be lawsuit material, so I hope they get the message. All right, this is my hometown of Blue Island. This is a major train overpass. This bridge was recently rebuilt. It was rebuilt about 9 years ago, and it was made more accessible, quote unquote. I want you to look at that bridge, and you tell me, I ride this. There's no way on God's freaking green earth that I'm going to ride my bike in that lane of traffic with my little babies in the car. Not doing it. You see this truck? Tons of trucks going real fast, and guess what? On the other side of this bridge, they're going downhill real fast. There's no way I'd ride my bike on that thing. Now, the only thing that's improved since they added this, which, by the way, I don't even think is ADA compatible. Steve, you were out there and you measured it. I don't think it's an ADA compatible bridge, but that's a baby trailer, okay? We're not talking a wheelchair, which is about the same width. Now, there are a lot of people who walk this bridge to get to the grocery stores and get to town, and there's a fair number of people like me who ride their bikes. Would you want to walk that with your kids in your hands, your little toddlers? Or your little 5- or 6-year-olds? Would you want to ride your bike over this? The only improvement is that the light posts are now outside. I don't know if you can see here, this light post is no longer in the sidewalk, because that was a problem. But also, and I think I can point out here, not only do you have major traffic inches from the sidewalk, but you've got a steep drop-off here. This is a very steep step. It's about 14 to 18 inches at points, at least 12 inches most of the way. Width is about 3.5 feet. That's a barrier. And guess what? This bridge, it's not going to be replaced now for probably 50 to 75 years. There's no change in this. We now have complete streets legislation in my community, but we didn't when this happened. And there were many other consequences to this new bridge, which was not a good thing. So bridges can be tough. Bridges can always be tough. Here's another bridge in my town. This is also going over another train yard. Blue Island is known for trains. You can see that's my bike club. This is this Saturday I took this picture. We were coming home from the community garden where we were doing some work. And this is very high speeds. They go about 45 miles an hour over this bridge. We have to climb up the bridge, we have to go back down. We might be able to ride on this part, but this is an overhang and it's pretty intimidating. I think they put it up there to keep kids from throwing rocks on the trains. I don't know, like I've never seen anyone throwing rocks on the trains, but that's my conjecture. Again, it's a barrier, right? Now, I was riding right here in the middle of the lane, so the kids, because I train them always to ride on the right, they're riding a little too far to the right, in my opinion, but we spread out over this hill because the kids were huffing and puffing up the hill. I happened to be carrying a trailer with all the tools and the watermelons for dessert and everything, so I was a little slower than the kids there. Alright, so it's a narrow bridge, limited sight lines, no shoulder, narrow sidewalk with an overhang, again, a steep curb, and high-speed traffic. That's a barrier, right? Sometimes we can't change these barriers, we can find ways around them, but a lot of times we can't. In my community, I have a canal, I have railroad tracks everywhere. I have 294, the interstate, and I also have 57. I got limitations, right? But I still gotta take my kids out on bikes. Okay, here's some more things. Pavement markings, worn away. Alright, this one, this is a city Chicago bike lane. I don't think you can barely see the line there. It's barely visible. This is my own town, right? There's a crosswalk. This is a crosswalk at the end of the bridge, like about a block away from that giant bridge I was complaining about. Not only do they put this huge thing in, but they added a bunch of right-hand turn lanes, 2 left-hand turn lanes, and when they first put this in here, the crossing period was about 22 seconds. I literally, many occasions, witnessed grandmothers walking across, doing this with an umbrella. Because they had to get across the street, and they knew they didn't have enough time, and they didn't want to get run over by cars that were turning. And this curve right here is very open, so there's all these people trying to make right-hand turns. Terrifying. Before that, a lot of people walked to get to the grocery store. After this reconstruction, guess what? A lot fewer people were walking up to the grocery store. You can understand why, right? That's a huge barrier. Okay, this is not too far. This is my bike train. It was in the summertime, so this is like the last week of school. They don't have their backpacks. But here we are coming home. You can see the improvements, right? Here we've got really good, clear marks. You know exactly where you have to be. Here we've got, we've got a school sign logo up there. We've got, clear crosswalks. We've got a signal. Pretty open sight lines. This is a much better intersection for getting around. Here's another great example. This is a protected bike lane. This is in Chicago. This is on Kinsey. I think this is on Kinsey. Yeah, I think this is Kinsey. That's a Blonde chocolate factory, if anyone knows. And there's one of the green. Have you heard of the Green Lane Project? Anyone here heard of that? Okay. So you're kind of seeing there's one of the green lanes, and that's because there's an intersection there, and they want to make sure it's clear who has right of way. Okay, this is the same bike lane. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? Right? That's a protected bike lane. Okay, this is supposed to keep you separate from traffic, and that Coca-Cola truck is freaking parked in the bike lane. It's a problem. That's for me. I call 311. I call the police. And I take pictures and I mail in that picture because I'm really obnoxious that way. Here's some more. Here's another protected bike lane, car parked in it. Mind you, notice the open parking spot here and the open parking spot here. Those really irritate me. And then here we have a school bus parked in the protected bike lane and people trying to get scrunched past in traffic. Obviously, those are barriers. That's an enforcement thing, right? I mean, that's because they're not soft laws. They need to be enforced. You need to have police officers that are giving those guys tickets or warnings at least.
It's also a culture and education. Right. That, some people are doing it just to be really like, I don't care, and some just really do not understand. I also just wanted to add one thing. Even though Jane is giving some examples from Chicago, that bridge she showed, that intersection she showed, I mean, how many of you have bridge barriers and intersections like that in your community? Tell the truth. I mean, so I just, we do just want to kind of keep qualifying that even though some of the examples we're drawing are from a major metro area, that we know these conditions exist throughout the state.
Yeah, and just to put in perspective, Long Island is a community that's older than Chicago, and it really has a feel of one of your Main Street, typical Main Street little small towns of anywhere in Illinois, really, truly. I mean, I'm not making that up. So, you know, Deb's talking, and I think, Steve, you can testify, right? Okay, so here's another protected bike lane. This is actually the new Dearborn lanes, two-way traffic, by the way, both directions for bike lanes being occupied here. Here's my family that same night. We were trying to go for a bike ride around the city, spring break. We were enjoying ourselves, but there was a cab there. Kind of a problem. All right, so moving on here. So who's more vulnerable, right? Who should have a protected bike lane? You think it should be the cab, or do you think it's the family of 5 on a bike, right? You know, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, bike lanes can really work. Bike lanes help to overcome barriers, and obviously when they're working great, they work wonderfully well. This is just a normal bike lane. You can see that people are using it. There's another rider back in the distance there. Just grabbed a couple of shots. Here we have another. This is a protected bike lane, and actually the bike lane is actually here, and these are parked cars here. So you can see that it's going from a two-way street to a one-way street, so they've taken it on the left-hand side of traffic. Okay, so creating better infrastructure. Here is the new Dearborn bike lanes. I think you can see up here, well, I can't really see it. That's a bicycle, that's a turn signal for bicycles. And it actually has a bicycle red light and a bicycle green light, or bicycle yellow light. It's really cute. Clear off your windshield, that's a barrier. So you have to plan accordingly, you have to anticipate. So my solution is be visible. We put a lot of lights, a lot of reflectors, a lot of safety vests. Here they are at night. Okay, this is after the Eagles donated safety vests to my group, so you can see my kids with all my kids, you know, my bike club kids. You can see them all with their little safety vests. Boy, that really pops in it, let me tell you. IKEA, if you have any IKEAs in your neighborhood, $3.99 for a safety vest. They have 7 sizes of safety vests, from little bitty kids all the way up to big honking guys with winter coats on. So you have lots of options. $3.99, like who can't afford that, right? The Eagles donated it to us. Okay, here you have my bike club. We ride in the wintertime. It's at night. We leave at 4:30. Guess what time the sun sets? 4:30. Okay, so my kids ride all year round, and we ride in snow and rain and everything else. And they wear their safety vests, so they pop. They also have rear reflectors. A lot of these kids have red blinky lights. They all have a white headlight. What is that white headlight? It's a low-income community I come from. For most of these kids, it's a flashlight held on with a hair pony. Works great. Electrical tape's even better. And if you've ever seen those little rubber bracelets that the kids use, you know, it's like I Heart Boobies or whatever, you know, the fundraiser that they're doing, those work fantastic. Those are like the bomb for holding a flashlight on your handlebars. Cheap, effective, overcomes a barrier, right? Now, up there you see, so bike ninjas become visible with safety vests and lights. And, you know, here's a safety vest and also lights. And Joanne does, Keyshawn right up here does have a light on too. He's completely in black. Black helmet, black kid, black coat, black pants. He would be absolutely invisible riding his bike if he did not have that safety vest on, right? So that's why you gotta do this. I mean, you know, you have to look out for yourself. You gotta look out for your kids. We run a bunch of Make It Reflective workshops. This is for Bike Winter. Another woman and I do this every year. We do several of these. And we sew on and glue on and paste all sorts of reflective things. And you can see how well that works. Okay, so another barrier, inadequate bike parking. How many of you guys have inadequate bike parking in your community? A lot of you, right? Zero bike parking, okay, that's like a huge barrier, all right? So even in like major places like Chicago, this is a bike rack, the city of Chicago bike rack. There's 4 bike racks around this building. This is the Monadnock building, and it's always like this. It's like a bike puzzle. Look at this bike rack. That's at my daughter's school. Like, can you believe that? Like, obviously there's an issue there. I'm on the school board, guess what? We now have 4 bike racks. This is my local grocery store. This is Aldi, where we do a lot of our grocery shopping. Look at this. People are riding their bikes. That's not my family. Those are not my bikes. Okay, just saying. Those are other people in the community riding their bikes. Okay, so what do? We added racks. We got more bike racks. This one, Veterans Memorial School, where my daughter is now, and my son had graduated from a while ago, they fundraised. And guess what? The student council bought those bike racks. There's 3 of them. They're themed, they're Veterans Memorial, so they're red, white, and blue. You see the red and the blue there, and the white one's farther down. So, you know, there's ways to fundraise to overcome some of these barriers. Sometimes you can get grants, sometimes you get donations, right? Okay, road conditions, right? Obviously road conditions. This one is snow, but sometimes it's bad road conditions. My community is like pothole city. We basically tell everyone we're riding Swiss cheese all the time. So you learn how to handle those conditions, right? You give training and education, you help people figure out what's the safest way to ride in those conditions, and you wear the right gear. Now, I don't know if you noticed that this is the same little child, that's my youngest daughter, and we ride to school every day year-round. And we ride in all conditions, and you know, having the right gear makes a difference. These little fleecy balaclavas, Bike Winter sews those and gives them out. They donate them every year. And just having a few pieces of equipment can make all the difference for making year-round biking. Sometimes you need to find another route. This is the head of the Major Taylor Trail near my house. That's a barrier. There's, you know, not too many of us around this. Luckily, it was fairly shallow and it only went up about maybe 9 inches. If you followed this one little line there, I was able to get around it. But, so, yeah, I don't have inflatables on my bike, sorry.
One thing I just wanted to add about the Bike Winter, and although it seems like we're having more and more of these rain events, throughout Illinois, like in Chicago, we've done the numbers, and it's not as bad as you think. You know, we have this image in the Midwest, we are hardy and hail, and we always have 12 inches of snow to dig out. But for the most part, you know, the roads are clear. It's not every day, and so I think we get this perception that once winter happens, it's just, we just need to go under our caves. If you can handle sometimes riding, sometimes not riding, recognize that, especially because you get, you know, people joke that there's only 3 good cycling seasons in the Midwest. And I said, yeah, spring, winter, and fall. Yeah. I'm like, who wants to bike when it's 90 degrees out? Well, I do, but in general, you know, winter biking can be much more comfortable than summer biking.
I would agree with that. My favorite season is fall, late fall. I love riding this time of year. So, okay, barriers. Okay, so this is my hometown. This is Belen. Remember I told you it looks like it could be kind of any little small town in Illinois? Well, there we go. Traffic is an issue, right? We're taking the lane. There's 2 lanes of traffic here, but it's still a barrier. You know, that's intimidating for most cyclists to ride. Here's an intersection. This is the Major Taylor Trail. We're riding the Major Taylor here, okay? We've just come to an intersection. See any problems with this intersection? I'll give you a hint. We have to go from here to here, okay? Now you look at that, look at the traffic, and and it's all mostly turning traffic. I would say probably 75% of the traffic is turning here, whether one way or the other. So the trail runs diagonally through a high traffic intersection. There's hardly any sidewalk here. There's even less on this side over here, because we end up having to go this way and then go this way to cross. But it's not very clear. And then look at this. The traffic signal isn't too short. It only lasts for about 30 seconds. Try doing that with a group of kids. Not too there. Here's an example of how it can work. This is a solution, and it's called a traffic scramble, right? Where you have diagonal crossing. Basically, all cars are stopped, and just pedestrians are allowed to go, or bicyclists or whatever. So that's a solution you could do in that intersection. Okay, so how old is this person? 84. It's my mom. She rides all the time. She's 84. It looks pretty good, right? Okay, so she's 84. Where does she like to ride? Sidewalk and ding, trails. You got it right. She loves riding on the trails. My mom would ride the trails every day, everywhere. She does not like riding in traffic. She'll ride these little quiet side streets, but you know, to get to that trail, we have to cross the major streets. It's intimidating, right? You know, you gotta make it easy for people. Here's my town again. Think this is a barrier? Steve Uptown was there that day that we were taking this. I will reiterate, there's a high school right over here, and that high school, probably about 700 kids in the high school have to get to this high school on their own power. Not in cars, not in buses. They walk, they bike, they skateboard. You think that's a barrier for kids getting to school, since they have to go 2 blocks minimally down the street? No sidewalks, and look at this. This is like hard-packed gravel. The gravel's like the size of your fist. A barrier, right? How are people, look at all the traffic coming through here, tons and tons of trucks. Oy, not a good thing, right? Sidewalks would help, obviously. Here again, traffic, you know, like I have to ride with traffic. Open streets, that's a way you can start building consensus, start getting people interested, start getting people to think about how they can re-own their streets. Open streets is this idea of closing down the streets for a couple of hours once a month or once a weekend, and you make it open to anyone who wants to use it on their own power. Again, we did an impromptu open streets last fall. They repaved our street, and all the neighbors got together, and we put tables out with treats and stuff, and we just closed the street ourselves. We parked a couple of cars, we blocked it off, and for this 3-block stretch, we had our own open streets, and the kids loved it. So did the parents. You know, make it happen, right? It doesn't have to be formalized. Sometimes, you know, I learned in the Catholic school system, it's easier to seek forgiveness than to get permission. Just saying.
So, okay, something else about the impromptu or formal open streets, that creates a very easy place for a kid to drag, or a parent to drag their bike out of the basement. And someone like Jane or some other neighbor is going to pump up the tires, give it the ABC check, help them get back on, and that's a very easy, accessible, low-stress way to start liberating some of these bikes from the basement.
Another issue are poverty. I want you to look at these kids on these bikes. Okay, yesterday, my school district put over 500 kids on bicycles for Bike Day. We did 10 miles by bike. The kids had a couple of water stops. We always corner a couple of local politicians to get the water and a couple businesses. And you can see, that's a honking sea of bicycles, right? What do you notice about this bike and this child? Okay? Or how about this child on this bike? Or this child on this bike? These are teensy bikes. Most of the time, I'm sorry, they're craptastic bikes. They come from Target or Walmart. They're hand-me-downs. They might be the 3rd child riding it. Half of them don't have brakes. I spend about 2 weeks before Bike Day doing bike repair constantly between the hours of 2 and about 5 o'clock. Again, Steve's helped me on that, so he can testify that there's a lot of bike repair that goes on to make this happen. We had 200 kids who wanted to ride this year, and they could not. And you want to know why they couldn't? No bike. They had no bike, and we had no bike to give them. I have a lot of bikes in my garage. My garage is pretty much bicycles and only bicycles. I didn't have enough. I loaned out every bicycle we owned, except for the tandem, and I just didn't have enough bikes, right? That's a barrier, right? So, you know, tiny bikes, hand-me-down bikes, and bikes that are hard to repair, bikes that are busted beyond what they can really be maintained. Necessity is the mother of invention. Like, how do you make people ride their bike? You show them how they can get around easily. These are both shots that were taken in my town just in the last year. This guy was scrapping or doing something. I think he had tin cans on the back, and he built all that himself, he told me. I was talking to him about it. This guy clearly was, I mean, that's shutter. You made a trailer out of shutters and, I don't know, bike something, maybe a wheelbarrow cart or something for gardening. This guy I spotted, he was riding to Minnesota, and I spotted him riding through Palos Heights, and I said, I gotta get his picture. So I ran him down, literally, I'm running down the street, hold up! You know, trying to get his picture, but there he is with his guitar, right? He got everything carried. Here's a person using a backpack in the front. Here's a person using like a kitty litter tub. And check this out, right? What is that, right? You're looking at that like, what? Fishing poles? What is it? He's a window washer. I saw this last month. I cornered him. He said he's got a patent out on that. It's just PVC piping and some hose clamps. But I thought, like, how cool is that? Like, you can carry anything by bike. There's a guy in my neighborhood who carries about 200 pounds of plumbing equipment by bike. Now, mind you, he eats up a bike about every 2 years. He has to get it replaced, no matter how heavy duty it is. But still, like, how cool is that? I've seen guys, painters, carrying full-size ladders. 2 guys on bikes carrying like a ladder between them. On side streets, thank God. But I mean, you know, you can be pretty inventive with your bike. You can have panniers and racks. I mean, this one's like a really sweet one. Look at this. It's got a mount for the bike lock. Kind of how, oh, that's very upscale, right? That's a Cydia, very pretty bike. This is my bike with the groceries loaded in the back. And look at these. This is a local grocery store. Look at all the people. This is winter time. These people are shopping by bike, man. Like, work it. Here's a guy with a sound system on the back. Here's my Travway trailer, which was like my gift to myself after doing the Rails to Trails, not the Trails for Illinois ride, the Giddy Up this summer. I'm like, I am going to go bike camping. And I've been looking at this, eyeballing this cart, and so guess what? I bought it for myself for my birthday, yay! So I'm going bike camping this summer. Okay.
Jane, have you ever had your eye exceed your capacity? Have you ever had a situation where you thought so much that you couldn't sit on your bike?
Yes.
Oh,
but I've always been able to figure out a way to get it.
Okay, bingo. That is,
yeah.
I have this, like, I feel like it's sort of like, almost missing the train. Steve and I were talking about this, that margin of error gets smaller and smaller. It's like, I know I can do it. It's the same thing with me and biking and carrying stuff. Like, I think I can get one more thing. And then you just realize, if you stand outside the store long enough, and and tie the bags in every which way. I have yet to, I'm now probably this weekend, I'm going to have a problem, but there's always a way.
And again, there's necessities of prevention. I've recently bought things that were too much and I didn't have a way to attach it to my rack because I did have painters and stuff, but I didn't have my trailer that day. You know what? Shrink wrap works highly effectively for tying paper towels and toilet paper on the back of a bike. Just saying, real easy, right? A little bit of shrink wrap. Who knew, right? Okay, so here's cargo bikes, by the way, that long-tailed. Anyone recognize that suave person there with the cute little girl on the back of his bike? That is Violet and Steve Buckdell. All right, so here's cargo bikes, a bunch of cargo bikes. I happened to spot these in Chicago about a month and a half ago. I came to a screeching halt on my bike. I had to come over, and it was a thing for Rita Sport or something, some sort of chocolate bar. They were giving out freebie samples, and they had this bike fleet that showed up with all these cargo bikes. I thought that was kind of cool. Speaking of way too much stuff on the back of my bike, there's my bike after deciding all the oh wait.
It's on sale.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of stuff here. The child is completely, her backpack is completely stuffed with groceries. I have stuff bungeed on here. Literally, that's the top of the pile. So I had trouble getting on my bike that day, but I still got home. Okay, so pets. You can carry pets by bike. Notice, these are terribly out of focus pictures. Notice the two little chihuahuas, right, hanging out here. There's a schnauzer right there. This is a very famous schnauzer who's ridden all over the planet on the back of this bike. And here's a little guy in some sort of a bob trailer, okay, riding. And here, another pet? This is one of my neighbors riding his little brother around town, okay? And he does this all the time. But you know what? They're getting around by bike. You can have tandems to get around. Those are both ways to travel and commute. You can have trailers. There's all sorts of trailer options out there. You can have tag-alongs, right? These little bike attachments. They have some really cool ones now. Is Gina in the room? Gina Kenny? There's some really cool, she's got a really cool thing. It's like a bar that takes a normal kid's bike and turns it into a tag-along. So her son could ride on his own, and when he gets too tired and kind of poops out, she just attaches it to the back of her bike and it becomes a tag-along. Like, how cool is that?
One thing to keep in mind with these kinds of, some of them, it seems like a big expense. Number one, there's always a really good aftermarket.
Yeah, very good
aftermarket. When you go out of it, you can always sell it. But find people, test ride them. For example, for me, tag-along was horrible because I'm so small. It was always fishtailing. And we actually bought one before I even test rode it. And so we had to sell it. So look into your community, call us. We'll do whatever we can to help you test ride some of these things out before you make a commitment.
Yeah, and it's not without reason. There's a lot of men riding tag-alongs. I do have a picture of one. They're all men because I don't like riding it either. I find it kind of squirrely. All right, so okay, box bikes are becoming more and more trendy. This one you can see on the back there. There's a box bike. Here you can see a box bike, and here you can see a box bike. Those are ways to get families around. They're very popular in the Netherlands and Germany. Okay, this is what I do all the time. I ride pillion. That is, for example, if I need to go to the dentist, my daughter, my little kid here, goes to a dentist in the city of Chicago. I have to ride my bike. I pick her up at school. We ride to the train station. We take the train into the city. I cannot bring her bike on the train because she's only 8 years old. They won't let me bring her bike on the train. So she rides pillion. And sometimes if I'm running errands or if she walks to school with a friend or if I know she's going to walk home with a friend, I'll ride her on the back of my bike. That's just a normal bike rack with a couple of bike grocery panniers. Works great. We do it all the time. And then this I thought was great. Some guy welded a seat, took a part of a frame and welded it on the back. Now, there's no handlebars. You have to wrap your arms around the waist of the rider, but man, that's not a bad gig, right? Like, how cool is that? I use it all the time. Also, this is something that you have to start thinking about extending your range, and a lot of people can do that by using transit. I think all public transit in the state of Illinois now has bike racks on it, like buses. Take advantage of that, right? Bikes on transit is an amazing thing. I take my bike on the train all the time. Here you can see a bunch of bikes, right? Here's a bike, here's a bike, here's a bike coming on at another stop. We just bungee them on. But here, I want you to see, we've got a person with a handicap vehicle. We have a bicycle here. We have 2 scooters. I don't know if you can see the scooters, right? Talk about multimodal. And here we are all on the train. And now bikes are on Amtrak. This is Dear James. This is the new thing that they're starting about doing on the Illinois Amtrak trains, is putting in these bike cars. Like, how cool is that? You don't even have to box your bike, man. Just roll it on, ready to go. Talk about access to trails, right, Steve? I don't know if he's still here, but, and then, yeah, ta-da. Okay, so this picture just, I had to brag. I won an award with this last year. That's one of my bike club kids and my daughter, so my youngest daughter. All right, thank you. Really.